I first met in person with Mary E. in the summer of 2007. I had initially agreed for her husband of 15 years to see her for an interview, and also Mary also agreed, since I was not a newsman but rather an amateur writer gathering information for a few early college assignments, and, if all went according to plan, some pieces of fiction. We scheduled the interview for a peculiar weekend when I was in Chicago on unrelated business, but at the last moment, Mary changed her mind and locked herself in the couple's bathroom, refusing to meet with me. For half an hour, I sat with Terrence as we camped outside of the bedroom door. I listened and took notes while he attempted fruitlessly to calm his wife. The things Mary said made little sense, but it fit with the pattern I was expecting. Though I could not see her, I could tell that from her voice she was crying, and more often than not, her objections to speaking with me were centered around a weird sequence of dreams she's been having. Her nightmares. Terrence apologized profusely when we ceased the exercise. I did my best to take it in stride, but I recall I wasn't a reporter in search of a story, but just merely a curious young man in search of information. I thought in time I could perhaps find another similar case if I put my mind and resources to it. Mary E. was a scoop for a small-town Chicago-based bulletin-board system in 1992 when she first encountered the Smile.jpg image, and her life was changed forever. She and Terrence had been married for only about 5 months, and Mary was an estimated of 400 people who saw the image when it was posted as a hyperlink on the BBS. Though she was the only one who spoke openly about the experience, the rest had remained anonymous, or are perhaps dead. In 2005, I was only in the 10th grade. Smile.jpg was first brought to my attention due to my emerging interest in web-based phenomenons. Mary was the most often cited victim to what is sometimes referred to as the Smile Dog, the being of Smile.jpg. What caught my interest, other than the obvious macabre elements of the cyber legend and to my provocacy towards such things, was the sheer lack of information, usually to the point where people don't believe it even exists, other than a rumor or a hoax. It is unique because the entire phenomenon centers around a picture file that is nowhere to be found on the internet, and certainly may be just a photo-manipulated picture done by some avid Photoshop user on the web, showing up most frequently on sites such as Image 4chan, particularly the X-Reddit focused on paranormal subboards. It is suspected that these are fakes. They do not have the same effects as the true Smile.jpg. It's believed to have, namely, sudden onset temporal lobe ellipticity and acute anxiety associated with it. This purported reaction in the viewer is one of the various reasons why the phantom-like Smile.jpg is regarded with such disdain, since it's, well, platonically absurd. Although, depending on whom you ask, the reluctance of knowledge of Smile.jpg's existence may vary from one person to another, from fear to disbelief. Neither Smile.jpg nor Smile.dog is mentioned anywhere on the Wikipedia, though the website features articles on other, perhaps more scandalous shock sites such as Hello.jpg or Two Girls One Cup. Any attempt to create a page pertaining to Smile.jpg is, well, similarly deleted on the encyclopedia by many admins. Encounters with the Smile.jpg are stuff of internet legend. Mary E.'s story is not unique, and there are other unverified rumors of the Smile.jpg showing up in the early days of Usenet, and one persistent tale in 2002, where a hacker flooded the forums of a humor satire website, Something Awful, with dialogue and other pictures of the Smile.dog, rendering almost half the forum's users epileptic. It's also said that in the late 90s, the Smile.jpg circulated on a Usenet as an attachment of a chain email with something like, "Smile, God loves you." Yet, despite the huge exposure of these stunts would generate, there are very few people who would admit to having experienced any of them, and no trace of the file or any link has ever been discovered. Those who have claimed to see the Smile.jpg often weakly joke that they are far too busy to save a copy of the picture on their hard drive. However, all alleged victims offered the same description of the photo. A dog-like creature, usually described as appearing similar to a Siberian husky, illuminated by the flash of the camera, sits in a dim room. The only background detail is a visible human hand extending from the darkness near the left side of the frame. The hand is empty, but is usually described as beckoning. Of course, the most attention is given to the dog, or the creature, as some victims seem to be more certain than others, and usually claim that they have seen. The muzzle of the beast is, well, retributively split into a wide grin, revealing 2 rows of very white, very straight, very sharp, human-looking teeth. This, of course, is not the description given immediately after viewing the picture, but rather a recollection of victims who have claimed to seen the picture endlessly repeated in their minds and in their eye during the time when they're, well, in reality having an epileptic fit. These fits are reported to continue indeterminately, often while these victims are sleeping, resulting in very vivid and disturbing nightmares. These may be treated with medication, though some instances are more effective than others. Mary E., I assumed, was not affected by the medication. That is why after my visit to her apartment in 2007, I sent out feelers to several folklore and urban legend-oriented news groups and websites and mailing lists, hoping to find the name of a supposed victim of Smile.jpg who felt more interested in talking about his or her experiences. For a time, nothing happened at length, and I almost forgot about it completely, about my pursuits. But I since begun freshman year of college and was quite busy. Mary, out of the blue, then contacted me via email. However, near the beginning of March 2008, which was rather almost a year after I initially gone to her apartment. Here's what the email read. I am incredibly sorry about my behavior last summer when you came to interview me. I hope you understand that it's no fault of yours, but rather my own problems that led me to cry out and act as I did. I realize I could have handled that situation more courteously and elegantly. However, I hope you'll forgive me. At the time, I was afraid. You see, for 15 years now, I've been haunted by the Smile.jpg. Smile.dog comes to my dreams, and every time I sleep, I see its face. And I know it sounds silly, but it's true. There is ineffectual about quality that is in my dreams and in my nightmares that makes them completely unlike any other real dreams I have ever had. I do not move and I do not speak. I simply look ahead, and the only thing ahead of me is the scene for the horrific picture. I see the hand, that beckoning hand, and I see the smile dog. It talks to me. It is not a dog, of course, though I'm not quite sure what it really is. It tells me it will leave me alone if I only do as it asks. All I must do, as it says, is spread the word. That's how it phrases its demands. And I know exactly what it means. It wants me to show someone else the picture. And I could. The weeks after my incident, I received the email in the manila envelope with no return address. Inside was only a 3.5-inch floppy disk. Without having to check, I knew precisely what was on it. I thought for a long time about my options. I could show it to a stranger, a coworker even. I could even show it to Terrence. As much as the idea disgusted me, and what would happen then? Well, if Smile.dog kept its word, I could sleep. Yet, if it lied, what could I do? And who was it to say that something worse would not happen to me if I did as the creature asked? And so I did nothing for 15 years, though I kept the diskette hidden amongst my things. Every night for 15 years, Smile.dog has came to me in my sleep and demanded I spread the word. For 15 years, I stood strong, though there have been hard times. Many of my fellow victims on the BBS board, where I first encountered Smile.jpg, stopped posting. I heard some of them committed suicide. Others remained completely silent, simply disappearing off the face of the web. They're the ones I worry about the most. I sincerely hope you'll forgive me, Mr. L. But last summer, when you contacted me, my husband, about an interview, I was near my breaking point, and I decided to give you the floppy disk. I did not care if Smile.dog was lying or not. I wanted it to end. You were a stranger, someone who I had no connection with, and I thought I would not feel sorrow when you took the diskette as a part of your research and sealed your fate. But before you arrived, I realized what I was doing was plotting to ruin your life. I could not stand the thought, and in fact, I still cannot. I am ashamed, Mr. L, and I hope that this warning will dissuade you from further investigation in the Smile.jpg. You may in your time encounter someone who is, if not weaker than I, then who wholly is deprived of anything, and someone who will not hesitate to follow the Smile Dog's orders. Stop while you are still whole. Stop while you are ahead. Stop before he gets a hold of you, like he has done to me. Sincerely, Mary E. Terrence contacted me later that month with the news that his wife had killed herself. While cleaning up her various things she had left behind, closing email accounts and the like, he happened upon the above message, and he was a man in shambles. He wept as he told me to listen to his wife's advice. He'd found the diskette. He revealed to me that he'd burned it with nothing but a stinking pile of burnt plastic. The part that disturbed him the most, however, was that the diskette had hissed as it melted, like some sort of animal, he said. I will admit I am a little uncertain how to respond to this. At first, I thought it was perhaps just a joke, a couple blatantly beating on some old news that maybe get some attention on the internet or something like that, maybe something to get a rise out of me. But I indeed checked some shuffle records in the Chicago News and online obituaries, and it proved that Mary E. was indeed dead. There was, of course, no mention of suicide in the article. I decided that for a time, at least, I would do no further pursuit in the subject of Smile.jpg, especially since finals are coming up at the end of May. But the world has odd ways of teasing us. Almost a full year after I returned from my disastrous interview with Mary E., I received an email. Subject read, Smile. I found your email address through a mailing list, and your profile said you were interested in the Smile.dog. I have saw it. It's not as bad as everyone says, and I have sent it to you here. Just spreading the word. The final line chilled me to the bone. According to the email, the client had one file attachment called, naturally, Smile.jpg. I considered downloading it for some time. It was most likely fake, and I imagine even if it was, I was never fully convinced that the Smile.jpg's peculiar powers really existed. Mary E.'s account shaken me, yes, but she was probably mentally unbalanced anyway. After all, how could a simple image do that? Smile.jpg was, what is this said to accomplish? What sort of creature could break one's mind with simply the power of the eye? And such things were, well, platonically absurd. But then why would this legend exist at all? There is a truth to every lie, and there is, I don't know. If I downloaded the image, and if it turned out that Mary was correct, if Smile Dog did come to my dreams demanding I spread the word, would I do it? Would I be able to live my life as Mary had, fighting against the urge until I died, or would I simply spread the word, eager to put it at rest? And if I chose the latter route, how could I do it, and whom could I burden in turn? If I went through my earlier intention to write a short article about the Smile.jpg, I decided I could attach it as evidence, and anyone who read the article, whom took interest, would be affected. And assuming the Smile.jpg attached to email was genuine, would I be capricious enough to save myself in that manner? Could I spread the word? Oh, of course I could. This is too priceless to pass up.